you. My name is Akinchana Devi Dasi. I joined in Caterage at the end of 1979. I continued to serve in South Africa from 1979 until 1989. And then I left for the UK in 89. And at present, I still serve in the UK as one of the trustees and a National Council member on the leadership of the UK Yatra. So, just to give you a little background of the services that I have done in South Africa, um, after the installation of Anantasesha right here on this property, we made various attempts to raise funds to build the temple. And no matter what we did, we just never could raise enough funds to do so. And it wasn't until Bhagavan Prabhu, who was the new GBC, who took over after Jayatirtha left, he took over in 1982, that things got going. In fact, what he did was he ordered, not himself, but Tulsidas, who was heading up the project here in South Africa, he ordered a whole load of paintings from Hong Kong, and he had all of us go out and sell paintings to raise the funds to build the temple. So, just for clarification, these were not Krishna paintings. They were paintings of landscapes, seascapes, sceneries, different various sceneries, and during the day we had exhibitions at supermarkets like the Pick and Pay, where we would set up a table and sell all day to the white community in South Africa predominantly. Some of the Indians bought these paintings as well. And in the evenings, we did from 9 to 5. We did the supermarkets with exhibition tables, and in the evening from 6 to 9, we knocked on doors and we sold paintings from door to door. Um, although these were challenging times, because we often hear the narrative of what the apartheid era offered to the Western community of devotees here, but you don't often hear the perspective from the Indians who went to sell to the white community, and that was a challenge in itself. I remember going to Bloemfontein, and at that time there were no Indians allowed there, and our driver was white, and me being brown, we weren't allowed to stay in the same accommodation. So when we would go to accommodation, she would say duck. So I would bend down in the car, and then she would drive through. So it didn't look like there was an Indian person next to her. And that's how I stayed in Bloemfontein. In fact, when I started to sell paintings in Bloemfontein, they all spoke Afrikaans. So I had to very quickly brush up on my Afrikaans. And uh, all I had learned was just whatever I learned in school. So I would say to the Afrikaans community, ek het baie mooi skilderye, seeskape, landskape, and then I would say to them in Afrikaans, would you like to have a look? Because it is well priced and it will look beautiful on your walls. So they would give me a good look at this young Indian lady and say, Auntie, tomorrow you bring us a curry, we'll buy your painting. So So that's how I bartered with the Afrikaners in Bloemfontein and sold a few paintings. Uh, when we went off to Polokwane, it got even worse because I think I must have been the only brown face in the entire fair there. And when I looked around, everybody was so white, and I thought, how am I going to do anything here? So I saw a stall selling freshly squeezed orange juice. So I bought myself a cup of orange juice. I sat in a corner. I had my orange juice to gain my strength. I had a good cry, being the only Indian there. There's no other Indian person. And I thought, I have to get going, which I did. So these were a few of the little challenges. There was another, I'll tell you one more story about the days of painting. So one time I had a stall set up in Johannesburg at a Pick and Pay. I had a very tall Afrikaner guy he had a very intimidating presence, in fact. He came over to the stall, and he was choosing several paintings, and then finally he decided he liked too many paintings. And I thought to myself, usually when it gets to this stage, they aren't going to buy any. He's just wasting my time. So So I looked at him and I thought, well, whatever you decide, it's fine by me. And then he asked me, can you come to my place of work? And I asked him, where exactly is your place of work? Where would you like me to come to? And he said, the prison. And I said, the prison? And he said, yeah, the prison. So I got the address and I thought, well, I'm not sure about this, but for whatever it's worth, we will make the journey there to the prison. So we left one of the ladies in the car, and I said to her, if we haven't returned in an hour, it's time to take action. And two of us went into the prison, and the man looked at all the paintings. He bought 30, quite to my joy, in fact. He bought 30 paintings. The story gets even better. He then asked me, how would you like to, how, can I pay you in cash? And I said, well, a check would be preferable. But, if you want to give me cash, that's fine. So he brought a load of cash. We had to count it, put it into a plastic bag. It was Saturday afternoon, so we couldn't go to the bank to bank the money. So I had to sleep with it under my mattress until we went to the bank on Monday morning to deposit the cash. So that's a few adventures of raising funds to build the Sri Sri Radharadhana temple, which was an austerity, but at the same time it was an adventure. And I'm really glad that I was part of that. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada visited here in 1975, Srila Prabhupada wanted two things for South Africa. One was to build a temple in Durban, and the second was to preach to the African community. And at that time, I thought to myself, well, you know, two things that Srila Prabhupada wanted. We got this temple going, which was a good thing. And how do we preach to the African community? So, I mean, even when I look around today, I don't think that that desire of Srila Prabhupada has truly taken effect and grown in any substantial ways. That's just my own observation. I could be wrong on it, and I can put my hand up to being wrong on it. Anyway, so in 1983, I pioneered a preaching program in the prisons in Johannesburg. They were mainly African ANC prisoners, ANC prisoners who were in for crimes against the government. Of course, there were some prisoners who were not uh, of the political persuasion, who were other prisoners. So when I pioneered this program in the prison, I used to visit and take them Srila Prabhupada's books. It was small books in the beginning, and eventually I took them a Bhagavad Gita. I had a lot of pushback from the prison because they told me that they belong to the Dutch Reformed Church, and I shouldn't be preaching them Hindu philosophy. So, against all odds, I continued to visit. The prisoners eventually started chanting. Some of them got to chanting 8 rounds, 10 rounds, and then from the Back to Godhead magazines that I had given them, one of them read that they should set up an altar, and they should also chant on beads. So he asked me, can you please bring me some beads the next time you come? And I said, oh yeah, for sure. So I took some chanting beads in, and I was stopped, and the prison wardens wouldn't allow me to give the chanting beads to the prisoners because it could pose as a danger to them. So he confiscated the beads. So I relayed that message to the prisoners, and I said to them, I'm really sorry, I wasn't allowed to bring in the beads because there are risks associated with it. So they said that's okay. Anyway, when I went back a fortnight later to visit them, one of them said, Akinchana, don't worry about the beads because we are already chanting on beads. And I asked, how did you do it? What have you done? And he said, I'll show you. So he put his hand in his pocket and he pulled out a string, and he said, you see, when we were out on ground duties, I picked up all the matchsticks. We've snapped them in halves and we've strung them together on a thread. For the Krishna bead, we've left a whole matchstick. So now we are chanting this. Because we only have one set, we pass it around and share it with each other. The, 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 they that they got some of them got transferred from maximum security to medium security with the idea of having a release at some point in time which was closer than it would have been if they were not chanting. That was their words to me. There was another time in the prison when I was called in to quell some riots. The prisoners had read in the Back to Godhead magazine that they should be offering their food to Krishna. And we had this conversation, and I said to them, well, the situation is what it is. So why don't you throw your meat away and offer your potatoes and your bread to Krishna? In that way, you are still eating Krishna prasadam, and that's the best you can do in your situation. And they decided that that wasn't good enough. So they all went on a hunger strike, the entire prison, and there were about 60 of them by this point in that prison. They all went on a hunger strike. They hadn't eaten for days. So Radharadhanath temple had opened. I was a pujari here at Radharadhanath temple. So they called me up. The head of the prison called me up and said, listen, we don't want to have a situation on our hands. So would you please come to the prison immediately, because there's no one else that can make any difference here with them. You're the only one who can make any difference. And I asked them what was going on, and then they said, well, they refused to eat anything. So Nandakumar was temple president here at Radharadhanath. He bought me a ticket and flew me to Johannesburg. So I got to the prison, and I thought, well, this is fantastic, because it gives me the bargaining power. I am in a negotiating seat, so why not take full advantage of this? And I said to the head of the prison, I said, well, if they have decided that they want vegetarian food, that's their prerogative, and I think you would need to comply with that. And anyway, it was a hard negotiation, bargaining with them. We finally achieved that, and they were offered vegetarian food in prison. So that was my. It's a program that I started in 1983, and I continued until 1989, until I left South Africa to go to live in England. So those were uh, two of my contributions to Srila Prabhupada's desire, which was opening a temple in Durban and preaching to the African community. So, so I personally think it is very easy to preach to Indians, because for Indians this is their religion. They come in their flocks, they come in their numbers. But preaching to other communities is a lot harder. So I would say to the future generation, and even to the current management of ISKCON South Africa, please look a little deeper. Look at other communities. Prabhupada wanted us to preach to the African community. Infiltrate that. Do your best. Don't just stick with the Indians where it is easy to do so. So that would be one of my messages in general. In terms of Radharadhanath, I was very lucky to be one of the first pujaris here. The temple opened, Radharadhanath opened with 4 pujaris. That was myself, Radharadhanath, Mahavidya, and Jesta. Mahavidya was a very strict head pujari, and he wanted everything to be perfect for the deities, for the offering. And I got the service to make the Mangalarti sweets for Radharadhanath. I did the pera, the burfi, the sandish. That was okay. That wasn't difficult to do. When it came to the rasgullas, that was a real challenge. I just couldn't get that right. I did it the first day, and Mahavidya said, "It's okay. It's mediocre. I'll accept it. I'll accept it today." I mean, it wasn't mediocre. Actually, it had fallen apart. It was that bad. It had fallen apart because I didn't have the skill to make it, and I don't know, whatever it was, I just didn't have the skill to do it. So he said, improve on it, do it better the next day. So the next day I did it, and the next day it looked even worse. And then he said to me, he said, you know what? If you think you can offer this to Krishna, he called me aside and he said, we should always offer the best to Krishna. We should make it perfect. So it should be so good. It should be so perfect for offering to the deities. If you think this is suitable to be offered to Krishna, then why don't you try eating it yourself? And he made me eat the lot. So it was a hard learning lesson, but the lesson was learned, and it never failed after that. It got better as the days progressed. So that was one of my memories of Radharadhanath. Dressing them and cooking for them was a real pleasure for the years that I was here, and I did that. I took immense pleasure in doing that. It was it was hard. it was hard, very hard, because we were so few pujaris to carry out all the activities. To open a big Radhakrishna temple with only 4 full-time pujaris, that's a challenge. I mean, today there are hundreds of pujaris and cooks who are probably even being turned away because they have too many. Well, it wasn't so then. It was a very different ball game then. But although it was challenging, it was very rewarding. So I am really happy to be here and to be part of the 40th celebration. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada came to South Africa, I saw him in Durban City Hall. I was only 13 then. So um, anyway, it's nice to be here. In 1983, Tulsidas Prabhu asked me to set up an office in Johannesburg, so the devotees returning on a Friday from traveling Sankirtan would have somebody to hand over their sales funds to. And I said to Tulsi Prabhu, I said, well, I'm not quite sure how to run that office, so if I can have a little bit of training to do that, that would be good. And he said to me, okay, so you spend a week with Rasapriya. Now, Rasapriya was set up in Durban, and Rasapriya was the person in charge of all the finance for the building of Sri Sri Radharadhanath temple. She had some background knowledge of finance, so she ran the funding aspects of for Sri Sri Radharadhanath, and she was very diligent and very educated actually in running the office. So Tulsi Prabhu asked me to spend a week with her in Hillary and learn from her. So I had a week's crash course, and then I was sent to Johannesburg to deal with the funding with the painting sales in Johannesburg. So on the first Friday, when I arrived there, the devotees who had been traveling, some of them even up to a month, and some of them like a week, and they came in with quite a lot of cash and quite a lot of checks, and they handed it over to me. And I then realized that I had nowhere to keep the cash. So I rang Tulsi Prabhu in Durban, and I said to him, I said, Tulsi Prabhu, you've sent me here to work in the office, but we haven't got a safe. So what shall I do with all the cash that I've just collected from all the devotees? And he said, keep it under your mattress, and when you go to the shower, make sure you take it with you, and just remember not to tell anybody that you're carrying that amount of cash with you. So that was my experience of my first collection in Johannesburg from the painting sales. Um, Another thing I'd like to mention is when Sri Sri Radharadhanath temple opened, Bhagavan Prabhu was my guru and the GBC here then. So he called me into his office. So I came up with my mom actually, and my mom is Devi. So she sat outside his room, and she said to me, "You go in and have a chat with your guru, and I'll wait outside for you." So I was quite happy going in to have a chat with him. So I went in smiling, and I came out of the room crying. So my mom asked me, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because he wants me to cook the rice for the temple opening." And when I asked him how much rice, he said 100 kilos of rice. Now, to be perfectly honest, I had never cooked more than half a cup of rice in my life. And the half a cup of rice was just for the deity offering. That was all that was needed, half a cup of rice. When he said to me I had to cook 100 kilos of rice, I said to him, I think you're joking. I think you've got the wrong person in front of you. And he said, no, I'd like you to cook the rice. Me, as a 22-year-old girl who's not been trained in the finer aspects of quantity cooking, I burst into tears and I said to him, I don't think I could possibly do that. And he said, I insist, you're going to cook the rice. Anyway, so my mom said, you don't need to cry. I'm here to help you. She said, we will set up a system and we'll do it together. She said, what we'll do is we'll boil the rice, we'll boil the water, we'll saute the basmati rice with a little bit of ghee, and when it's sufficiently warmed up, we'll add the boiling water to it and then turn the heat down. And in that way, we'll get the rice cooked for the serving. So one of my lasting memories of the temple opening is having to cook 100 kilos of rice, something I'll never forget in my entire life. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Having a temple community is very essential for one's spiritual life, because life is hard enough. You know, I I've been in the banking industry, in the finance industry, for the last 20 years or so, and I go to work every day, and and you are during the day you are mixing with people who are not like-minded people, but at the end of the day you have to do a job, you have to earn an income, just like many people in the congregation. You have to go out and earn an income, but sadhana is very important. Chanting rounds, Srila Prabhupada has given us so many things by which to remember him. So even in our daily activities, if we uh, have a lunch break and we chant one round in a lunch break, or read one paragraph of the Bhagavad Gita in your lunch break, that is something towards increasing your sadhana and your spiritual life. So take it on board, take it on seriously, practice, because at the end of the day, no matter how hard you work, no matter how big your house is, you can have a 4 bedroom house, but when you go to sleep at night, you can only sleep in 1 bedroom. So if no matter how rich you are, you can have the best chapati flour to make the chapatis, but at the end of the day, can you eat 100 chapatis? You can't. You can only eat a few. So uh, just remember to service the soul, not just the body, servicing the soul through our spiritual activities, having a strong sadhana. So I would say those are the important things that Srila Prabhupada has given us, and we mustn't forget those.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,